Well, welcome back to our Week 6 postscript. We're glad that you're here joining us. Jerry just got done preaching 3 sermons on the topic of the trumpet, what happens in the last days when the new heavens and the new earth and the new Jerusalem are all inaugurated. I love today that you answered a lot of kind of the questions that you talked about, the cards that people filled out, and talked about cremation and how that fits into the whole resurrection thing. I know that we've answered a lot of questions, and we still have some more questions that we will answer, but what do you say to the person? I'm sure you've had people come to you and say this. I've heard this quite a bit. They say, I'm liking the study, I'm learning a lot, but I feel like each week I walk away with more questions than I have answers. What do you say to that person?
I think the questions are great. And I've always said the more we can live into the questions that we have and not let the questions become barriers to our faith, the more our faith will grow and the deeper our faith will become. I think the problem is we live in a Google world, where if you want information about something, you can type a search string into the Google search window and get millions of responses, and pretty much pick and choose what it is that you want to glean from that. And the fact of the matter is the Bible gives us a limited amount of information about heaven and about what heaven's going to be like. And we've said this on several occasions during this series. God hasn't given us everything we want to know about heaven, but He certainly has given us everything we need to know. And so what I would say to that person who is still unsatisfied with the amount of information that they've received about heaven, I would simply say, take it to the Lord. Just ask Him to reveal to you what it is that you would like for Him to reveal to you. And in His grace and in His loving way, He will respond. You will be endlessly unsatisfied if your source of information is the internet. But God will respond to your requests.
Yeah, and I've kind of felt that just in my own personal journey of going through the study of those questions that I still have, but the questions of what are we going to do, what are we going to eat, what's it going to look like, have become much less important as I've seen what the Bible, just the mindset that we're supposed to have about heaven. That those questions, they may matter, but what matters more is that we're excited for it, that it's going to be perfect, and we just can't even fathom it in our brains right now. So I like that, turning to Scripture and really getting the biblical worldview as opposed to filling in all the details that we won't be able to fill in. Speaking of those details, I know that in the study for this week, you and Jenna kind of briefly talk about different theories of the end times, and talking about this kind of obsession with knowing everything. The past 2 centuries or so, there's been a lot of work done on end times and prophecy and predicting the end of the world and, what's going to happen one after another. I love what you said in the sermon. You said that it's going to happen in an order that only God knows. I love that. Just as studies begin to talk about the end times and think about the end times, what are maybe just a couple of thoughts you want them to keep in mind if they do go there this week in their study?
Don't get caught up in what one person says in terms of the order of things. I think that sometimes we get too easily lost in those details. So is there going to be a rapture that happens before Jesus returns, or is it going to happen after? All this talk, and I've said this before, you can spend way too much time focusing on some of those kinds of details about, what's going to happen first and what's going to happen second. And the reality is that we don't know the day or the hour when anything's going to happen. And at the end of the day, what ultimately matters is that God wins.
Yeah.
That's the end of the story.
Yep.
God wins. Whether and all will be well.
Yep. Jesus is going to come back.
Might it be tough for me? It's tough now.
Yeah.
Might it be tougher? Could be.
Yeah.
But great will be my reward in heaven.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. It's maybe fun to have these discussions and debates about the end times, but they're of, in the grand schemes of things, very little import when it comes to how we live our lives and what's going to come. Because just us arguing about it isn't going to change what God's going to do,
Right.
and only He knows what He's going to do.
Right.
So today you talked about the new earth. You talked about our bodies and the resurrection and what will be. One of the questions I've always been fascinated with is something John Wesley was fascinated with too. Are there animals in the new earth?
Yeah, I think there are.
Yeah.
I mean, like, is my pet going to be in heaven?
Based on what I've heard about her, probably not.
I don't know the answer to that question, but I do believe there are going to be animals in heaven.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's passages of scripture. I can't cite the chapter and verse, but there are allusions to, the wolf will lie down with the lamb.
Right. There's talks of banquets, which
Yeah.
I gotta think that's not a vegetarian banquet. At least I hope not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that, and thinking that it's the earth, but new and perfect. And
Yes.
so the things that we enjoy here, we experience there in a perfected state. And I enjoy steak and my dog. So I hope that. Last question. You talked a little bit about your sermon about the New Jerusalem. This was something that I was pretty unaware of. I knew the new heavens, the new earth, but you encourage people to go to Revelation 22
Yeah.
and look through the New Jerusalem. What are just kind of a quick few thoughts about what the New Jerusalem is, what it isn't maybe, and what to keep in mind if folks decide to go read about it?
Well, the book of Revelation gives dimensions actually of the New Jerusalem, and oddly enough, it's a cube. And I can't remember this. I think it's like 1,500 miles tall and wide. I mean, it's
Yep.
and there are multiple levels. Now, I don't know that necessarily means one level is better than the other level, but it's massive.
I think I saw something that said if it plopped down in the middle of the United States, it would go from California to the East Coast and from Canada to Mexico.
Yeah.
And then tiered within that if all 7.5 billion people on the earth right now were a part of this tiered New Jerusalem, we would all have, I think, 4 to 5 square miles for ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing about it that struck me is that there's no need for the sun because light emits from the New Jerusalem because God is there. There's no temple because God is there, and it's an interesting description, fascinating description. There's actually more detail about the New Jerusalem than anything else in terms of descriptions, from the foundations to the gates that are made of a single pearl.
Yeah.
It's just if you wanna get some details and have some questions answered, the description of the New Jerusalem really gives it to you.
Yeah, and I think it's
Revelation 21, starting in verse 9.
Okay.
So.
It's all wrapped up in hope because if you look at, throughout the Old Testament, Jerusalem was a sign of worship. It was a place of the presence of God, and it was a place of hope. The hope for the restoration of Jerusalem is always there, even now. And so to see that recreated and brought back in the new earth, something gives us hope and excitement for what's to come.
Yep.
Well, Jerry, thanks again for sitting with us. We appreciate all that you do and all the wisdom that you're imparting to us. And thanks for stopping by. We hope and pray your studies and your small groups are going great. Let us know if you have any questions. We'd love to answer them. And we will see you next week.
And good luck on the baby coming into the world.
Thank you.
Cameron Joe.
Cameron Joe.
And it'll be Joy.
Once we start sleeping again, it will be. Thanks for joining us. Y'all take care.